Okay.
All right.
Right, let's start here. Okay, so people, first of all, we are going to talk a little bit about the event and the things we are going to do and make a short introduction about ourselves, okay? So my name is Andrea. I was born in Lorena. It's a small city in São Paulo State. It is a small city with about 92,000 people. And I would like to talk to you a little bit about myself. When I was a teenager, I studied theater and also I studied a course for teachers. I did magistério for who is more than 40. It is something normal. It was very common in Brazil, the girls to study magistério, also because it was easier. We didn't have mathematics and physics and chemistry. I didn't like this kind of issues. But I did because I really liked teaching. And then I worked for about 10 years in public schools here in my city and in other cities too. Then after that, I decided to study management. Then I started at FATEC in Guaratinguetá with bilingual secretary course. And then after that, I studied at Unital. I did an MBA in management and also a graduation in translation at Cruzeiro do Sul University. I taught English in a lot of franchising companies like Wizard and the CNA, but I saw it didn't achieve the goals of the client, of our clients, the clients that I wanted to achieve. Then I started working for multinationals, and I saw that the market needed something different. Then it was when I started with Seminole. It had another name. It was Survival English, and then according to the change of our goals, of our mission, we also changed the name of the company, and it is very nice. And so I love teaching English. I love studying English too, because it's an everyday study. And I hope we can help you and be helped too, because there is also something else to learn with people around us. So Cliff, now it's your time.
Hi, I'm Cliff Nickerson. I was born in northern Delaware on the east coast of the United States. I grew up about 25 minutes from Philadelphia on the highway. Delaware is kind of famous now because Joe Biden was our senator. But we're the smallest state in the country, the smallest population in the country, actually, not the smallest in area. I studied philosophy at University of Delaware, which is the same university that Dr. Jill Biden went to, the First Lady of the United States, but I didn't actually know her in university. We were there at the same time, but I didn't know her. I went on to study communications management at Wilmington College, which has now become Wilmington University. I worked about a decade in the automobile industry. I worked for Chrysler, and then I worked for several years in advertising. I had a career change in the 90s, and I worked for several years in advertising. I came to Brazil in 2000, and that's where I discovered my passion for teaching. I got 3 sons. My oldest is 21, William. Then I have a younger son, Jonathan, and my stepson, Pedro, is 11. Andrea's son is 11. I've also got 7 dogs. if I weren't a teacher, I'd probably be a veterinarian, I think, because I really like animals.
So it's a lot of dogs, people. So now I want to welcome everybody to our workshop. We are Seminole English for Professionals. We work for training, for English training for professionals.
We have communication training from the most essential situations to advanced and specific training.
Okay. We've worked tirelessly to create our own public speaking workshop, our public speaking training.
Our company is located in Lorena in the Paraíba River Valley in the state of São Paulo, Brazil. We have clients all around the country in Latin America, Europe, and the United States.
So welcome, people. And now I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves. Please open your cameras.
Yeah, everybody, please open your cameras and let's all introduce ourselves.
Hi, Edna. Nice to see you.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, Cliff. Nice
Hello.
to see you too. How are you?
Good. Akemi, why don't you begin?
Yeah, I can. My name is Edna. I'm living in São Paulo. I'm 46 years old. And as a Cliff, I love pets, and I live alone. I have just 4 cats in my home. And I'm a pension fund consultant and working in a multinational company named Cargill. And I just started to making a class with the Seminole, teaching with Cliff and Andrea. I'm very glad to hear with you this afternoon. Okay.
Good. Akemi?
I was going to say that I am always the first one when things are in alphabetical order.
Yeah, because your name
Yes.
just appears first in my
Yes, I'm
screen,
always the
so.
first one. Unless there's something in the room called Abner, so then I'm not the first one. So let's see. My name is Akemi Laureano. I'm a chemical engineer. I'm self-taught, learned English. I have never studied formal course, I haven't taken any formal lessons. I lived abroad twice, but none of them on native English speakers countries. I lived in Japan and Finland, so I used English there, but not learned a lot there. Let's see. As I told before, I work in a greenfield implementation in the Minas Gerais, and I also love animals, but I have just 1 dog. I wish I could have 7, but not possible for me right now.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, 1 is a lot of work. I imagine 7. So 7 times the fun also, I think. And I think that is for my side.
Okay. Patrick? You're muted.
Sorry. My name is Patrick. I'm 40 years old. I work as a product engineer. Since 2011, I worked in Volkswagen trucks and buses in Resende, Rio de Janeiro. That's it.
Okay. Edivar?
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Edivar Lopes. I have 49 years old, and I studied in a public school. Then I studied, I think, 3 years in English. I finished this study on 1991, and I formed it as a electrical technician and then as a programmer. as some friends that I got here, I work in a greenfield implementation here in Minas Gerais, Brazil. And I have lived many years in São José dos Campos. I think it's quite close to Lorena. I think it's 100 kilometers from there. Yeah. So I know Lorena. And that's it.
Okay, Murilo.
Hello, everyone. I'm Murilo Araújo. I'm 24 years, and I study electrical engineering in Federal of Itajubá. I'm work with my wife, selling natural products, and I have 2 kids. And as Cliff, I have 7 dogs too. I like very much, and that's it.
Okay, Alvino.
Okay, my name is Alvino. I was born in Curitiba, Paraná. So I study English, some schools, some different schools. I studied in the student exchange in Boston for 2 months, last 2 years ago. So I'm here to training more my English. I need to train more. Okay.
My brother is the chief pharmacist at Mass Gen Hospital in Boston.
Yeah. I live there near Medical Boston Center. So it's a nice place. I like it. I like it very much.
Yeah. Boston's a lot of fun. Johnny?
Hey guys, I'm connecting my computer here, so I'm a little bit confused here. I'm using the cell phone. I'm not. It's something that I'm not using to do, but I'm talking from Uberlândia. I am part of a large project here in the region, right? It's my intention here today is to have a good understanding of public speaking, because it's something that is part of my job, and I think that's something that always were connected with my studies and my life, and I really need to improve these skills in order to transmit correctly the intentions and the content that I want when I have in many different forums this type of contact with the people. So it's good to see the people here too.
Okay, great. Maurice.
Hello, everybody. My name is Maurice Abreu. I'm 35 years old. I work at Lens with Johnny, Akemi, Daniel, Edevar, and I see others here too. I'm in São José dos Campos right now. I born in Guaratinguetá, where Andrea
Next door.
yes, it's on your side. So I went to São José dos Campos when I was 1 year. So I work with system architects in Lansing. So I'm trying to improve my skills, like John said before. So I think it's good for us.
Okay, who's left? Danielle?
Let me open the phone. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel. I am 4 years old. I am a 3D software administration. I was born in São Paulo, and nowadays I'm living in the Uberlândia with my family. I have 2 kids and only 1 dog. It's more easy. And that's it.
Good.
Murilo, can you talk?
Murilo already introduced himself.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. His image was in another place.
Yeah, he moved.
Yeah. So I'm going to open our presentation here.
Here we go.
Okay. So people, here we have a kind of agreement for us to have all the training. The first agreement, we would like to ask you to keep your camera open if it's possible, because we need to see our training as we are in a meeting. So imagine you are in an office with all of these people, and then it's important for us to see each other. But if it is not possible, there's no problem.
We're going to have some moments of interaction. And at that time, was that us?
I think so.
Is at that time, we'd like everybody to keep their mics open. And if you want to ask a question or if you want to make a comment, you can raise your hand using the reactions that are on the bottom of the screen. See, my hand appeared there in my image. So if you do want to ask a question or make a comment, you can raise your hand at any time. Of course, when we finish talking, you should lower your hand, because I think if you keep your hand up, it changes the order of the images, the order that the people's images are in. So just put your hand up when you want to talk, and then put it down when you finished.
So we will have a 50-minute interval. So we use this moment to breathe, to have some coffee, and to prepare the activities you are invited to do, because we are going to have some moments of interaction, of presentation. Then it's important that you be prepared to speak.
Okay, we're going to have a couple brainstorm activities during the training today. Remember that when you're brainstorming, you can write down anything that comes into your head. There's no such thing as a bad idea when you're brainstorming. It's important to make sure that anything that comes into your head that you get down on paper. So we'd like everybody to get a writing device, a pen or a pencil, and some paper nearby, so that when we do the brainstorming activities, you can write down your ideas. So I wasn't raised in a really religious family. My father's a Methodist. My mom grew up Baptist. But when I was a young teen, my mom converted to Catholicism. I guess I was around 15 or 16. And my mom converted to Catholicism. And then when I was 17, I followed her into the Catholic Church. I also converted to Catholicism. And back then, we had just gotten a new bishop. Bishop Mulvey became the Bishop of Wilmington. And they decided to have two of the people from the recent group that had entered the church. They decided to have two of us give little testimonials at St. Mary's Cathedral in Wilmington. This cathedral's not really giant, but it's a little bit famous because it was founded by St. John Newman, who is a Catholic saint from the Philadelphia region. He was originally Bavarian, I think, but then he moved to the United States and became an American citizen. So my friend Father John Gracing brought me to this revered church a few times to practice my speech. And obviously you can imagine a 17 or 18-year-old kid. I was very nervous, and he would sit in the back of the church yelling, "Go slower, go slower." And I was really, really anxious. I think that there were around 300 people in the church, but in addition to just the parishioners, it was around 300 people, but a lot of priests and our bishop sitting in the front row. When I started to tell my story, all that nervousness kind of went away, and I started to really love public speaking. That's when I say the public speaking bug bit me, and I've loved it ever since. I've loved any opportunity that I can get to speak in public, I'll take. So I really, really love the area, and I've really enjoyed being able to put together this training program about it. More?
Yeah. So people with me was a bit different. And because I believe everybody has a different situation with public speaking. My first opportunity, I was 6 years old. It was my first day at school. And imagine, I was always inside home with just a brother. And suddenly I was with 30 people in the classroom. And my teacher was a very short woman. And she was a very strong one. And she told us about the story of the brave pink soldier. And this was fantastic because I really imagined all the situation, and I felt in love with her storytelling. And then I told I want to be like her. And then I started speaking a lot at school. Everything that happened, I was called. I was always saying poetries and reading in front of the audience, dancing. I don't like to dance very much, but I did everything at school. Oh, we need a kid for this. Oh, I am. I love that. So until now is like that, and I love a microphone. I like this. So public speaking, I think, is like this. We need always to be open to learn each time more. And here at school, we speak with people, we talk to people every day. I work with Cliff in pedagogical and with Esther, that is our support these days. She was supposed to be here with us. Maybe she had some kind of problems today. And that's it. So we are going to have other trainings like this of 3 hours. Public speaking is just the first one. We did a master class, and today is the workshop. We are improving it each time more because it is very good to prepare this kind of training and to get to know new people. So I would like to invite you to tell us your public speaking story.
We'd like two people if possible.
Yeah, I will stop sharing because I want to see the person.
We have a volunteer.
Choose one, Cliff. Johnny.
So probably we don't have this. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
It needs to be a love story. Like
no,
yours?
it doesn't. It doesn't have to be. It can be any type of public speaking story.
Okay, so I can be the second one.
Okay,
Johnny.
Okay, guys. So I as a young student, right? I was very shy, right? And but my scores in that moment were quite good. So the one teacher requested to prepare a science plan in that moment and project, right? And they prepared it very, very excited and to prepare the material, right? And after that, the teacher told me, okay, right now you need to present this project. What? To present that? And it was crazy to me, right? But at the same time was something that invited me for a new consideration that was, okay, I had a good idea for a kid, right? And explain about that. What was that project, and to convince the people that the project will change the way that the people are working with that situation that were related with organic, how to fight against some plagues in the plantations using organic solutions, and something easy for a kid. But I was really convinced that okay, now I need to convince the people that they can change and they can stop to use poison and many other things. So was quite interesting. But the point was, okay, it was necessary to go to a science fair and to present that for many different people, some people evaluating the work, and I had the opportunity to be first time for 2 national contests in 1988 and 1984, presenting this simple project. But I think that I had some conditions to present for the public in that moment. What's the point today, right? I feel like that is not complex to present these in large areas, but when we have just this small screen here, is a totally new context to me, right? And I think that I'm not performing in this type of situation that I need to be seated and we cannot see everybody, right? It's a totally new context. And this is why one of the points that I'm here is exactly to understand, right, how to use this new technology, this condition that we have here in this small space that have only my big face here talking to everybody, and I cannot use my body to walk and to have a different interface with the public, right? So this is my experience.
We have a partner that he teaches stand-up. He puts something in front of him, and for him it's okay. He likes to do like that. And he is a speaker. He does a lot of training, and he already worked with online training before the pandemic. I believe Johnny had felt.
No, he's here.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Akemi?
Yes, I have 2 stories, 2 different moments of my life with public speaking. One of them, I don't know if it counts, but it was public performing. I used to have a punk rock band when I was 16.
Nice.
Not because I love to be in front of the public, just because I love to have the band. The performing part was the worst for me because before the performing, I was always nervous, a lot, super nervous. Then when we start playing, the nervous goes away, and I didn't remember there was a lot of people in front of me and so on. Didn't have enough talents to be famous, so the band it's over when I was 18. Then I entered the college. I was a very good student. I love to study. And together with that, I used to write a lot of scientific articles. Those scientific articles, to be part of the academic world, we have to participate of technical congresses where the scientific articles must be presented. I presented like, I don't know, 10, 15 during my college time. And every time I was in the Congress in front of everybody with my panel of the article, I thought, what am I doing here again? I don't like to do that. I like to study, I like to write the article, but I don't like to present anything to anybody. So that's my not loving history with public speaking.
It's a question of press.
Yes, I think it is, but 15,
Yeah.
maybe practice and instruction, also education, also that I didn't do that time.
Yeah, it's interesting that people don't think of it this way, but scientists are much more likely to see their work in publications than other fields. People who study language or what have you don't normally see their work published, but scientists always see their work published. And scientists always have to present their research, at congresses or in meetings. And there's not very much communication training in universities. Now, Minas Gerais, for over 10 years now, they have actually required communication training in their technical courses, but only 10% of the courses have actually done it. Like only 10% of the universities have actually implemented it. But,
we were not prepared at all.
Yeah.
Just go there and present your excellent work, but if not good presented, it wasn't that excellent.
Yeah,
when
it doesn't.
you presented.
It doesn't matter how good it is if you can't
Yes.
present it well, right?
Yes.
Very good. So I like your story, Akemi, because it's not a story of loving public speaking. Public speaking is pretty scary, right? But really, what is it? What is public speaking?
Well, public speaking for me is delicious, as I told you. It's a key element for communication, not only to speak with a big audience, but it is it's something very common for human being. It's the way we communicate with others. We say about our desires, our needs, and it's an everyday activity. That's why we always say our trainings are for this, to get this, to achieve communication. There is a sentence of Chris Anderson. He is the CEO of TED Talk. He says, it's not more than having a conversation from your heart about something that you are passionate about. If you have a good story, if you love that kind of thing, if your eyes bright, that is a good presentation, a good public speaking communication.
So there are a bunch of different levels of communication. We normally break it down into five types. Sometimes I'm talking to myself, and that could be, that I'm in an internal dialogue. I need to consider making a decision. Maybe I'm trying to encourage myself, right? Saying something like, I can give a speech. I'm really excited about this presentation.
Sometimes you are talking to a coworker, to a friend, a client, or even a salesperson when you are going to buy something, or until it is called one-on-one communication.
Then there's small group communication, maybe a presentation, or even telling your friends a story or a joke. It can even be when you're sitting around the table talking to your family.
And public communication, what is this? Public communication is when you give a speech or you do a big proposal, or maybe you participate in a bid in a company to sell your products in a B2B situation. And also talking to a lot of people. I went to some courses in São Paulo with more than 4,000 people and one person on the stage. It's my dream to talk to 4,000, 5,000 people on the stage. It's fantastic. It's scary for me. I'm not prepared, but
Yeah.
it's my dream.
Yeah, I think the largest group I ever talked to was at a teachers conference.
Yeah.
But I think it was maybe 350 people. I've never had to give a speech. I've never gotten to give a speech for 1,000 people. That would be fun. And finally, our last category is broadcasting. And with the click of a button, now you can talk to thousands or even millions of people. We can talk to the whole world. YouTubers, TV news, that's mass communication.
Yeah. So, and then here we have some ranges of communication, the spheres of public speaking, where we need to talk to people around our life. So we have the professional sphere, where we talk to people that work with us, sometimes with an interview. Until for entering a company, we pass through an interview. You are public speaking. There are companies that ask you to make a presentation to try to the selection process. So you start in a company speaking English. Speaking English? No, speaking public. Sorry.
Public speaking.
Public speaking. And there are moments you need to do this in English, because I have trained some people that need to prepare themselves for interviews in English.
Yeah, we had a nice situation happen this year with Marcia, Johnny, from Johnny's group. She was doing interview training with me, and we worked on the part where you get to ask questions, like, what questions would you like to ask us? And then the next day she was called in for that phase of the interview, and she had 3 really good questions on the tip of her tongue because we had just worked it, and she did very, very well. The interview was in Portuguese, not in English, but she had the questions in her head already, so she was able to ask very meaningful questions. And the human resources person at the end of the interview actually said, we really, really loved the questions that you asked, you know? So,
and we also have Bianca more recently.
Yeah,
she
Bianca
participated
also
in
did
an
really
English
well.
process.
Yeah, Marcia thought hers was going to be in English, but then the section on English wasn't the interview. Right?
Yeah.
Then in the academic world, as Akemi was talking about, there's a lot of different kinds of presentations in coursework. You have graduation ceremonies. We have to defend dissertations or theses, present research projects, and participate sometimes in international congresses. Of course, teaching is an important form of public speaking. But there's another important side to that. Participating in classes and asking questions in presentations is also a form of public speaking.
Yeah.
In the master's degree program at Harvard University, the ability to ask a course question is one of the things you have to show that you know how to do. So they put a lot of weight in, how the students are able to interact during other people's presentations.
Yeah, and also in personal situations, because we need to introduce ourselves to our friends, families. We sometimes need to start and finish a relationship. And then we do public speaking every day. So we have other situations in personal moments that we need to speak is when we congratulate people at weddings, make farewells, honor people who passed away. So every day we have a moment for public speaking, right? Then.
Okay, now we're gonna do a little brainstorm, guys. We're gonna take 2 minutes, and I'd like everybody to think of at least 3 examples from your life where you have to apply public speaking, okay? Clearly, you can come up with more than 3 if you want to, but I'd like everybody to try to come up with at least 3 examples, okay? And we'll take 2 minutes. Okay, 1 minute left. Okay, let's wrap it up.
Now it's okay. My audio has gone.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Strange. You have to start recording again. Okay. So I'd like 2 different people to give us their examples of how they use public speaking.
I can share through experience, teacher.
Mm-hmm.
One of them important situation in my professional work. It was happen when I have to present an important project with my boss and the whole directory, and I have to convince them how important is that project to implement, to just in order to improve our work or for the team. This one. And the second one is when I was selected to announce it for the parents and the other friends, my sister wedding. And so very responsible. It was a great responsibility, and I was very nervous in that situation. But she chose me to announce it for everybody. And the other ones I remember in a job interview, and I had to answer questions for more than one interviewer. and convince them how I am the correct person to was selected for that position. And I think that three situations.
Good. Who else, guys?
I think Edevar, let's go.
I was about to choose someone. I'll try. To be honest, to talk in front of other people was not easy to me. I always have this difficulty to talk, and I barely could put 3 examples. but I thought I remember some of them, but very short, not too long. Once I made some how can I say, a safety workshop. I participated and I made this safety presentation for some employees that we have in companies. It's kind of training for people to think more about safety, and it was good. But it was just the thing that was prepared. It's not so by heart that I made that. And another one very similar is it's about technology. I made this lecture with technology, some area that I can speak very well, and that again I felt comfortable to with the material that I had, so that to make easy for me. And I just remember one thing once that I made it, that I didn't expect to do that. Was the time that my mother passed away, and I saw all the friends close to us and paying our respect to my mother, and I just felt that inside me, and I started to think and tell something about my mother, and actually I don't know why I started that, but I just felt, and I just talked to everyone. I remember some passes that my mother had with some people, and I remember to everyone, and just that. But to be honest, I always try to avoid to talk with people. If I have opportunity to not, I choose to not talk too much. That's
Me
it.
too.
Yeah.
Well, what they call soft skills, human skills, are extremely in demand now. You know, they're a big part of what businesses expect. You know, they don't just want you to be a programmer or a scientist or an engineer. They want you to also be able to communicate with people, right? So we can't really avoid in our careers these days, we can't really avoid having to communicate to people. You reminded me, Edevar, one time I used to go to a teachers training conference in Espírito Santo once a year. And one of the years, a friend of mine was supposed to give a presentation. And then like the day before we went to this conference, something came up and she couldn't go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, so you're going to give a presentation, right? Like, okay, the day before, you know, and you know, I didn't have time to make a PowerPoint presentation or anything. I kind of came up with the basic idea that I wanted to talk about the day before my presentation, and I wrote handwritten notes in my notebook. I was supposed to speak for 12 minutes. I ended up speaking 20. But I thought the funny thing was, like, I was really not really well prepared, but the guy who gave the presentation right before me was literally a magician. So like I had to follow a guy that did magic tricks for 15 minutes, you know, and everybody was super entertained and like really excited. And then I go up there with just like, you know, I just talked, right? It's kind of embarrassing.
No.
Okay. So let's move on. These are three purposes of communication, right? They really aren't all speeches, are they? But we're going to classify everything as a type of speech for the purposes of our training today. It's something you need to communicate verbally. Sometimes we need to give information to other people. So that could be a presentation for your coworkers, your subordinates, or your boss. It could be a news report. It could be teaching somebody about history or science. For doctors, giving a diagnosis to a patient or a family. Safety talk at a factory, like you were mentioning, Edvar. And even ordering food in a restaurant. I think if any of you guys have had the experience of going overseas, that's a little stressful when you're, you know, in the United States or Akemi said Finland, right? So you're in Finland and you have to order food at a restaurant. That's got to be an interesting situation.
A lot of things I ate, I have no idea until nowadays what actually was.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
Just it. Yeah. And there are a lot of times we need to persuade someone to do something, to convince somebody to do something or to motivate. We always have this kind of situation here, especially about motivation people to study English, because there are moments people want only to come to class, and then the other one who is studying at the same group has better result. Then why does he have better result than I? And then I thought I had a problem again. but then I always talk to people to study a little bit more, because if you don't study, of course, another person who studies 1 minute more a day is going to have better results. Then other thing, who use a lot persuade speech are the politicians. They are always trying to persuade us to vote on them, to support them on their projects, on their politics, and then it's a kind of persuading speech. And there are other kinds of persuading, like a coach of a team, or when you need to persuade somebody to change their behavior that is not good for them, but they continue doing the same thing. Or another thing, when you go to the supermarket, sometimes we go there, I have my own bag, but a lot of people use a lot of plastic bags. And then we need to convince this person, look, you need to improve this because of the environment. And so there are people who believe that, there are people who don't believe that, and then and even when you make a sale, you need to persuade the person to see that your product, your service is more valuable than your competitors.
And finally, a lot of communication is for entertainment purposes, actors, musicians, or stand-up comedians, but we're going to leave that for the professionals. That's not part of our course today.
So, and here we have the 3 pillars of argument. If you want, here we have some information. And the other day we did a long live about this too, right, Cliff?
Yeah.
And then here there is a kind of historic situation. The Greek people started with this movement, and they said these were the appeals for authority, emotions, and thinking. There's ethos is the ethical appeal. So it adds authority to your presentation, while the emotional appeal creates a bond between people. It's a kind of love, of thing that makes you to feel comfortable with the other. And the logos is the logical appeal, the rational one. Then that shows people the evidence, the numbers of things. Is the way to, these are the three pillars that we use for communication.
So our first pillar is the appeal to authority, ethos. This is when you inform people of your own qualifications and experience, or when you refer to an expert in an area. Sometimes our authority comes from people other than us, right? We love Simon Sinek, David J.P. Phillips. He's, probably one of the most important people in public speaking training these days. He got really famous a couple of years ago for his speech, Death by PowerPoint, where he was giving instructions to people on how to build the best PowerPoint presentation possible based on science, right? Keisha Brewer from University of Maryland, we'll talk about her a little bit today. Chris Anderson from TED Talks, obviously super influential. And Tony Robbins, who I think pretty much everybody knows from popularizing coaching around the world. So we're going to bring these people up, various times during our presentation today. I might talk about my own education at the University of Delaware and Wilmington University, both of which are world-class institutions. Or maybe Andrea and I could refer to the hundreds of professionals that we've successfully trained.
Yeah. And the second pillar, as I told you before, is the appeal to emotions. So it's pathos. It gives you empathy for the speaker. That's why sometimes we say, oh, I don't like this guy, even online, because I have some coaches, I love watching someone's, I can't even listen to their voices. I say, oh, this guy is it's terrible, but I don't know the person. It is the empathy you create with your audience. Storytelling is a very good tool for using the emotion. It is very much used by the big studios of filmmakers around the world. So, and then this is when you pull the heartstrings of your audience. You make them to come with you. Sometimes when we go to a lecture, we see the speakers saying things about their childhood, something happy or sad. And so this is what connects people. Then there are a lot of things that connect people, but the emotional ones are the most bond things. So then when we listen to emotional stories, we always ask, why does the person pass through that? What was the real situation? We put ourselves in their places.
And finally, there is the appeal to logic. So we can give verified evidence or statistics that support our idea. Graphics and diagrams and slide presentation, great ways to get into the rational part of the brain. If you give percentages or talk about amounts of money or numbers of people who are affected, these are all ways to use the logical appeal. I think it's important when we're giving technical presentations to not to overload with too many statistics, because if I give you in a 15-minute presentation, if I give you one statistic, your chance of remembering that statistic is phenomenal. However, if I have a 15-minute presentation and on 18 of my slides I have a statistic, the chance of the person remembering any of the statistics is really poor. Using graphs is excellent. But again, if I have one graph, it's gonna have a lot of impact. If I have 10 graphs, it's probably gonna have less impact. So we have to kind of be careful to not necessarily not present a lot of statistics to people, but to make sure that we put the proper emphasis on the statistics that I need them to come away with. You know, if you're talking about a big project that's going to have a massive amount of cost savings, you know, put that statistic in a different color and, you know, put it by itself on a slide. You know, $5 million, that's going to get everyone's attention. $100 million, that's going to get everyone's attention, right? So we have to be careful about how we use statistics and graphs in presentations so that we don't overload the audience.
Yeah. So here we have a theory of Keisha Brewer. She has a theory that says when you have a purpose, when you communicate with purpose, we align it to your value, you achieve your goal in every situation, but especially when you are having a public speaking communication, you need to think about it. What is the purpose of my communication? What is the value it brings? What's the goal where I want to achieve? Where do I want to achieve with my audience? What is their goals? Because here we always think about what's the goal of my audience, of what is the goal of my client. Clear?
When our purpose meets our values, it's easier to achieve our goals. So what is your purpose? What are your principles? What value do you bring to a partnership? What are you really trying to achieve? Have you ever thought about it? Now we're going to take a few minutes to brainstorm, and we're going to talk about 4 different areas. So we'd like you to write down, and we're going to do this very quickly. It's going to be 90 seconds per area. So we'd like you to write down, first we'll do purpose, then we'll do principles, our immutable beliefs that we aren't willing to compromise. We're going to talk about the value that we add, and then we're going to talk about our goals. Each section, we're going to give you 90 seconds to brainstorm, and then we'll discuss it at the end, okay? So everybody, let's take 90 seconds and write down our purpose.
Yeah, about purpose, for helping you, I have some questions that sometimes helps us to think about it. So what's our purpose? What makes your heart beats fast or your eyes brighter? Sometimes we need to think about it. What makes me to feel alive? If you, there's another question. What can I do for free? This is our purpose. That is something not related to money, but what makes you feel alive. So if you can answer these questions, you know your real purpose. And use it when you are telling a story or preparing a presentation, especially if you go to a job interview. Think about it. If you have these questions answered, you are going to be very well at this presentation, at this interview.
Okay. I'm going to put 90 seconds. Okay. Our next is principles, right? These are, as I said, the things that you're not willing to compromise on. Okay. And again, that we're talking about our personal principles, but also the principles that you bring to your organization. I think I'm just going to put 60 seconds. 90 seconds seems a little bit too long. I'm just going to put 60 seconds. Okay. Next, value added. Okay. Because the word value has two meanings. It can mean those principles that we just discussed, but it can also be commercial value, right? So here you can talk more about your talents, right? Your talents and your skills. Okay. 60 seconds again. Okay. And our final category is goals. And this can be your personal goals or your professional goals. Both, in fact. It is your personal goals and your professional goals. Okay. 60 seconds. Okay, that's it. I'm just gonna stop it here.
Okay. So people, now you took notes about your goals, your principles, your values. Who would you like to share with us? Let's go. I will choose somebody here. Let's see, Daniel. Let's pick Daniel, Alvino, Maurice, Murilo,
Daniel's too
and
quiet.
Patrick. Yes. Daniel.
I don't know. My principles is be honest and be professional. I don't know. It's the basic principles. My values is be proactivity and dedicated in my work. And the goals, I don't know. Give a good education to my sons and have a nice retirement. Prefer with a lot of money.
How old are you, Daniel? 30?
40.
40.
I don't know if our generation is gonna have this kind of
Oh, no. A public retirement, no. we need to have a plan to do this.
Yeah. You need to have some kind of
I'm curious, with the show of hands, how many people said one of the same things that Danielle said? If you have at least one of the same answers as him.
He said doing the right things is a kind of value. As me, I think this is a great and big value. We have to do all right things in our lives. And I think this one is the same.
Edivar, Johnny.
Too many hands.
Yes.
Too many hands. Oh, good.
No, but I think it's an important thing. On Wednesday, I mentioned Henry. I mentioned President Ford because he was a president in an unpopular era of history, and he gets a bad. He kind of had a bad reputation because he was the president during the end of the Vietnam War. So he kind of took the blame for a bunch of, political situations that had built up before him. But he was an extremely successful negotiator internationally. And one of the things that he said was, it doesn't matter who you're sitting across the table from. You have to try to find one thing that you can agree on. If we can agree on one principle, that's enough for us to build a relationship with the person and focus on that instead of any of the other person's reputation or whatever. Because he was a man who sat down with terrorists and negotiated with some kind of villains from history, But I really liked his approach to it, because sometimes you got to negotiate with people you don't like, right? Anybody else have a point to share here?
I have a related to the principles, right? I agree with Danielle. We have this common point related to be honest, right? And I like there's one principle from Mr. David Pfeffer, that is the CEO of Suzano Group, right? That he likes to talk about a gentle and strong behavior, right? So I really believe that we should be strong, right? Facing our challenges, could be personal, professional, or any challenge that we are facing in our life, but always be gentle is possible. We can see guys like Gandhi, that was a very strong person and very gentle person, right? So it's one point that I always try to keep is that, okay, we should be strong, but we don't need to be different of gentle, right? Even with people that are not cool or not the good guys, as you told, but we need to be gentle in this situations, right? It's an obligation, our obligation to be gentle. So my personal position.
Okay. Anyone else? Another volunteer? Alvina, you're a little quiet.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, hello. I'd love to share. I think the goals in our life is changing because when I would like to share when I started to when I needed to speech, I need to teach. When I studied in engineering school, I needed to complement my income. I need to teach. So in this time, I needed to improve some different ways to meet a goal. So I think goals in our life is changing when we are increased like a people. I think it is that.
I think teaching is a very interesting profession. Sometimes we're teaching stuff that people want to learn, like what Andrea and I do here with Seminole. We're training people things that they want to learn, but I also teach at Anglo. I teach American history to 15 and 16-year-old kids. They do not want to learn it at all, right? They have, in a class of 23, there's 3 kids who want to know and 20 kids who would just like to go to sleep, you know? So we have to try to find a way to make that subject that they are really not interested in. We have to try to find a way to make it interesting for them, you know? We're going to talk a little bit about metaphor later, but I have, you know, I always try to make metaphors that the kids can imagine themselves being part of what I'm talking about in the context of U.S. history, right? American history is a very difficult subject to teach. It's one of these things where the country's principles and actions don't line up. So at the same time as we're saying, oh, the United States has this wonderful constitution, and then the kids are like, but they're not obeying any of the rules in it, right? So we have to find a way to, you know, get those kids a little bit more engaged in it, and it can be quite challenging, right? It really can be quite challenging. But it's really rewarding, I think, when we see, you know, when we see that the kids care about the subject. And I get some really amazing writing assignments from some of them sometimes, like, you know, kids who I think these kids are not really into the subject here. And then they give one of our historical analysis compositions, and it's like the kid really was paying attention and they really do understand what's happening in the class, you know, just not talking during class, but they're following. So that can be extremely rewarding. Like, yeah. I guess knowing that we're touching someone can be very rewarding. So speaking of logos, we've got some technical information in the next section. Okay. What makes a speech interesting? Well, we want to elicit a positive reaction from our audience. And remember, we're using the word speech for all of these interactions, and I'm using the word audience for the person who I'm talking to, even if it's me communicating just directly to one of my subordinates, for example, you know. or if it's me talking, you know, giving a safety presentation or something, we're still going to consider all of these things speeches, right? So we need to get a positive reaction from the audience. And we do that by going in and squeezing the limbic system of the brain. The limbic system is the primitive part of your brain that controls your hormone system, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about activating good hormones and trying not to activate bad hormones. There's a great speech. It's from a British trainer who, in the beginning of the guy's speech, he said, "You're going to like me at the beginning of my speech, and in the middle, you're not going to like me anymore. But by the end, you're going to like me again. Don't worry," you know. And then he does that during his speech, you know, makes you not like him in the middle, and then makes you like him again at the end. And he uses a set of tools from body language and voice intonation in order to do it. So even when the guy tells us what he's going to do and how he's going to do it, he still succeeds. So it's nice to have a little bit of technical knowledge about what's going on when we communicate with people. So our first hormone that we're going to look at, well, first of all, what they call the angel's cocktail is 3 good hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphin, right? We produce dopamine, this guy here, we produce dopamine when we anticipate something. So, but dopamine helps us focus, it pumps us up, it helps us to remember things. If you want to stimulate dopamine production, you want to build anticipation in the audience. You can ask questions or use a structure that keeps them hanging on what you're going to say next. This is one of the good reasons that we tell people in the beginning of our speech, we tell them the structure we're going to use. If I say, "I've got 3 important things to tell you today," you're going to build up anticipation because you know that I'm going to have 3 things, right? So by telling people how we're going to discuss the subject, it helps to build anticipation. We can use rhetorical devices as well. "You'll never guess who I saw at the hair salon." You know, now you're like, "Ooh, he saw somebody famous," right? Or I say, "Guess what happened after that?" Now I've got you involved in my story because you're trying to make a prediction. Okay. Now our next one is oxytocin, which we can't confuse with Oxycontin, which is an opioid drug that has been responsible for a painkiller crisis in my country. Thankfully, we didn't have that here in Brazil, but oxytocin is often called the love hormone. If you want to build a connection with people, oxytocin is the key. So you can stimulate oxytocin by building empathy with the audience. So here's where that story about childhood or family comes in handy. If you talk about struggles that you faced or challenges that you've overcome, you need to get the audience to connect with you at the human level. Our stories about connection don't always have to be, they have to be personal stories, but they don't always have to be stories that are about us. There's a great TED talk from a woman that works in an investment bank in Africa, and she is like the whitest American lady you've ever seen, but her clients are these women that live in a favela in Kenya, right? And during her speech, she introduces us in the beginning of the speech to one of these women. And during the speech, she comes back to that woman's life, you know. And by the end of the speech, you feel a connection with this woman, and it also is building up anticipation because by the end of the speech, you're like, how does her story end, right? And the end of her story is fantastic. She entered a international program for small business people, And by the end of it, she had managed to get into a matching program where the international bank will match dollar for dollar what the African woman puts into her investment. So she was able to get out of a generational problem of living in the slums and was able to take her daughter to live in a house that they owned, right? So the end of the story is this fantastic happy ending, and we're like, oh, you know, really excited when it has that nice ending. So the story has to be personal, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a story about me if I know a good story, you know, a good emotional story about somebody else. In that great TED Talk about the soap, Andrea loves that one. She tells us the story of a woman who lost one of her children to sepsis, like basically dying because it was too dirty, right? And then the end of the TED Talk, she's telling us that the woman has another child that survived, and yay, right? So we have we get a really good emotional feeling from it. And our final good hormone is endorphin. This is going to help people relax and focus. If you can get a laugh or a great big smile out of the audience, you'll stimulate their endorphins. And a lot of times for smiling, people will mirror you. So if you can practice smiling during your speech, it's probably the best way to get other people in the audience to smile as well, right? So we can normally get that feedback from our audience. And we're going to talk about eye contact in the second half today, but that idea of smiling and making a little bit of eye contact with people in the audience is a great way to build up the endorphins in their brains, right? If you're good at telling jokes or funny stories, you can tell a joke, or you can get somebody to feel happy about something that's happening. In international presentations, people say that humor you have to be sensitive about it, because what one culture finds funny, another culture might not necessarily find funny. So we do have to be, a little bit careful about including humor in international presentations. You even see this in my country, the difference between Northern and Southern and Western senses of humor. Like, Americans have regional senses of humor, and a joke that's going to work really great in New York doesn't necessarily work in Kentucky. And that joke that works really great in Kentucky doesn't necessarily work in Hollywood. So you just have to be sensitive about it. A funny statistic, or a funny thing that I learned in a business training course that I used to do, was the only humor that they found to be universal is mother-in-law jokes. Apparently, every culture thinks jokes about your mother-in-law are funny, right? But that's not going to fit into every presentation. If I'm doing a sales presentation, I can't throw a mother-in-law joke in there, right? So, but still, don't underestimate the power of eye contact and a smile. Now, our devil's cocktail, our bad hormones, are cortisol and adrenaline. We want to avoid these. These are stress hormones. If a person gets stress hormones, they're going to be irritated, and they're going to be more critical. They won't trust you as much, and they won't remember what you're talking about. When we are full of cortisol, we are less creative. Cortisol and adrenaline, we're less creative, and we make poor decisions. So you should try to avoid scaring your audience, worrying them, or irritating them. There's a kind of classic example of a automobile commercial from the 1990s that failed utterly. It was trying to show the safety of auto lock brakes, but in the commercial, it shows the couple avoiding a car accident, and people just associated the car accident with the brand, So, a kind of expensive publicity campaign that they ended up scrapping because it didn't build the positive connection that you want for the vehicle. You know, it was focusing people on that idea of the accident, which turns people off to the brand. It doesn't make them like it. So yeah, the people avoided the accident, but still, car accidents are stressful and terrible. And you know, I think if anyone who has ever had a car accident gets that memory, and that's not something that you want to build up an audience. Okay.
So that's a kind of very technical issues about hormones and that stuff. Now we are going to talk a little bit about storytelling. I love this kind of issues. So it's important, first of all, it's important to say that when you do a storytelling, you need to remember a very basic Portuguese class when we were studying in fundamental school. We need to, first of all, to think that it has introduction, development, and conclusion. If you see every movie, everything that you do in your life, in your written, you need to follow this, okay? Introduction, development, and conclusion.
Communication experts have analyzed thousands of recorded and written speeches, and they've consistently found a common element to the best speeches. The best speeches are story-based. So now you're thinking, great, I have no idea how to tell a story, but don't worry, we have you covered. We've got a system.
So according to Chris Anderson from TED Talk, he says, I told you in the beginning that you should tell your story with your heart. That is what Pixar and Marvel look for. Of course, they look for money too, but they look for something that makes our emotional feeling well. And that here we have some examples of movies we have watched a lot. I watched all of them with Pedro, and not only once. I always watch. There are some I watched 3-4 times. And so this is the formula that Pixar uses. And then here, I until found a kind of scheme for us to use this an example. I'm going to send it to you when I send the ebook this week. So there are people telling about the story for a very long time, and Pixar uses like this: once upon a time, every day, then one day, because of that, until finally. If you put in that first formula, that is introduction, development, conclusion, it follows the same scheme. And then, why do they use this one? Because the stories connect people. And then for a lot of years ago, Joseph Campbell started with this, talking about stories. And they also used this. It was the hero journey. It's much used on these studios. And then we need to build communication, and build communication is in human nature. So we need to think about it, because this is how the advertisement, the studios use to have success.
Can we go back to that last slide? Depending on how you're going to structure the way you're talking, sometimes we use one day to introduce our solution, but sometimes we use the until finally to introduce the solution. So if I offer my solution to the person in one day, then I'm going to talk about the results from my solution. Sometimes one day is a problem, and until finally is going to be my solution. I solve the person's problem at the end of the story. So you've got two kind of different ways that you can use the same template to, you know, I'm kind of thinking of making a sale. But if we look at a story that one of our students is going through, we've got a student who was basically offered a gigantic promotion, like a fantastically gigantic promotion, but they couldn't give it to him because they needed somebody who spoke fluent English in order to do the job.
And this was very funny because he saw one of our advertisements that I had a kind of cartoon with a story of a person who lost a promotion at the company because of the lack of English. Then he called us, and it's about 7 months he's studying with us. And he is already speaking English. It's fantastic. His results is one of the best we had.
And he went from having that like public school level of English, like he had just studied the English that they teach in public schools here in Brazil. And now, I guess last month, he was the guy that took the American executive to meet clients in Brazil. Like he was the person who did it. So if I use the story structure of one day, like we just did, one day was him finding us, right? Because of that, I show the results. And then until finally, I'm giving you the fact that he was able to, you know, do this tour with the American executive. Another way to structure the same story would be to focus on the problems that he was facing at the beginning, and then in the end say until finally he came to us, right? And we had Carol, who came to us with a kind of an interesting thing. Here at USP, her teacher is studying this new kind of alloy called a high entropy alloy. It's a brand new technology. They don't know what they're going to use it for yet, right? They're like developing a new type of science, right? And then she was given a month to get ready to present about it in Singapore, right? The university sent her to Singapore to do a presentation in English about a brand new technology, right? And there was, you know, in their research at USP, they had a bunch of interesting little technical problems. They didn't know why some of the aluminum in the alloy just seems to disappear during the curing process. They don't know, I mean, until now, they don't know why it happens. It's an unexpected result and they can't figure out the reason for it yet. So she kind of had to make a presentation about a brand new technology with some kind of interesting and unseen technical problems. And she ended up going to Singapore and making a fantastic impression on the people there. Okay. So I don't think we got into, we didn't get into the details of the story structure, did we?
Nope.
The comfort zone.
No, this is at the end, Cliff. We changed it.
Oh, I've got it in the wrong place. my notes are in the wrong place. Okay. So a great tool to bring people into your idea is by using sensory language. You can describe the way things look, sound, and feel. You can describe symbols from writing to abstract images. If I say, it would be nice if we had a park here, blah, that's not very interesting. If I say, it would be nice if we had a park where we could get some sun and see trees, Or we could play Frisbee with our dogs, lay in the grass to read a good book, have cookouts surrounded by nature. Now I've gotten you involved in the things that you would feel in the park. So it's a better way to give you a palpable connection. You're inside my idea because I let you use your sensory apparatus to understand my story. It's going to make your messages a lot more effective if we can bring people into sensory language. Now, we're talking about 4 different kinds of sensory language here, and I have to say we did not develop this. This is from another scientist. So we've got visual, auditory, symbolic, and kinesthetic. And you might hear people talk about learning styles, and you'll be like, wait, aren't those the same as the learning styles? And yeah, coincidentally, these are the same as the learning styles,
Yeah.
right? So you'll regularly hear people talk about being visual learners or auditory learners. We can imagine a visual cue is something normally that we build into our, or that we can build into our presentations. So if you have a PowerPoint presentation, or if you have paper that you're going to give to the people, when we use a graph, it's a way to get visual, to make a visual connection with the person. Also, just describing things that you see using metaphors works very well with the visual side. Auditory is really just us explaining things. As we are English teacher, we use an awful lot of auditory language. We spend most of our time talking to people. And as Johnny pointed out, like these days, we are trapped in this little square in so many of our meetings. And while many of us are going back to work, there's still a side of our communication that is not going to go away. The internet is just going to become more involved in business over time, and we're going to have more and more relationships that are built on these little talking heads. If we go back to the 1990s and the early 2000s, you guys will probably remember email was the king of digital communication back then, and you had to be able to write a good email in order to get people's attention, right? And these days, more and more, the ability to record a video is going to be more important, right? And Andrea pointed out, in a lot of human resources processes now, we're seeing that people are asked to tell a story about their family, for example, right? We had one of our students go into a selection process that they had to make a presentation about them, their personal life, not their professional life, right? So
now everything is through videos. It was not very common for us in the past, so we needed to change our minds on this. At the beginning, it was very crazy, very complicated for us to face the camera, but now it's very common. Everywhere you go, you see people on the cell phone recording videos and putting things on Instagram, YouTube, and other social media. But the most
we at one point we were recording 5 videos in a day. This is before the pandemic even.
The pandemic, yeah.
Right. But in order to build up our content on YouTube, we had to practice and practice and practice. How do you get a video with good content short enough? And you can see, if you look at our older videos, some of them are a little bit longer, but we got to the point that we could make a 1 minute or 90-second video,
30 something,
sometimes 30-second video about the topic that we wanted to discuss. And to engage with people online, a lot of times we've got to fit into that short time constraint if we want to get people's attention.
Johnny sent me a message here saying that Europeans started this kind of things very early. We are late. We are late, it was my conclusion. Okay. And then people, but the most important thing is for us is to believe we can tell stories. We can imagine things, we can imagine situations, we can visualize situations, and we can tell stories, of course. So storytelling is a kind of skills that we can get better with practice, like English, Portuguese, Spanish, and any other thing we learn. For example, I'm learning how to deal with social media. It's not easy, it is very difficult. There are a lot of mysteries that you don't know how to do to work with algorithms. And then and we learn, and with practice we get better. So take time to write down your stories in Portuguese and in English. Especially, I always write in English to practice my English. But if you think, oh, it's important to write in Portuguese, I write in English because it is important for us. Practice makes our masters. So for you to write, you need to think about things that make you laugh, make you feel empathy, sometimes makes you get excited, happy about something. Then you need to imagine what is the effect you want to achieve in your audience, the person you are talking to. So if you do that, you are going to have a good story. Everything here using this kind of sensory language, you need to use it for you to write a story, a good story. My slide, okay.
Okay. This is a more technical area, opening and closing. You'll see some very different styles. We use a lot of TED Talks. We've been teaching with TED Talks for years now. And you'll see that there are a lot of different ways that people open. Sometimes they'll open with a personal story that gets the person involved. But some TED Talks just use the kind of cliched, today I'm going to talk to you about, right?
Yeah.
And it's a cliche, but it's pretty effective, right?
Yeah.
If I say, I'm going to tell you 3 important things about investing, so this kind of goes back to our writing classes in school, that you when you're opening your speech, you want to give the person an idea of what's going to happen during the speech. You don't have to actually just tell them the speech is in 3 parts, right? But in order to take advantage of some of the things we've talked about today, like getting a good hormone cycle from our audience, we've learned that we have to build anticipation. So when you tell the person in the introduction of your speech, in the opening, you give them the idea of the structure of the speech, it's a kind of easy way to help build up anticipation in the listener, right? So again, I tell you, I'm going to tell you 3 things, or we have 8 points that we need to discuss in this safety meeting, right? I think 8 is probably a lot for people to pay attention to, but at least it gives them it gives the person kind of a idea of what it is that they're going to hear, right? You always want to develop. You always want to develop with examples, right? These can be technical points But as I've mentioned before, we've got to be careful about just giving too much information, because there's this old model that we used to talk about data becoming knowledge. Because just giving somebody data doesn't necessarily make them know what you're talking about, right? So we need to take the, we need to take that data that we're giving them, make it into information, which information is something that I can understand. And then we need to take that information and make it into knowledge, which is something the person can use. So it changes it from, kind of a be to a do in the end, right? And using we're going to get more into different types of structure after break, but using a well-structured talk is good for everybody. It's good for you because it'll help you to remember what it is you have to talk about, but it's also good for the audience because it'll help them be able to pay attention, right? And there's kind of some sad stuff that we know from neurology, that on average, if a person gives an 8-minute speech, the audience is not paying attention for 4 minutes of it, just because of the way our brains work, right? So you've kind of, in your 8-minute speech, you've only got 4 minutes to communicate, and people fade in and out while you're talking. So when you're well organized, the person understands where they are in the structure. And this goes back to what Andrea was saying about the way movies seem so similar these days, because they use this kind of classical structure. So you pretty much know, if you're watching a superhero movie, you know where you are in the story because of the things that are happening. And if you're watching a Pixar movie, you know where you are in the story. We have a certain expectation for romances. We have a certain expectation for comedies, and sticking to the conventions is a way to keep the audience engaged. Guys, let's take a short break. We had in the beginning, we said 15 minutes, but I don't think we're going to take 15 minutes. I think let's just try to take a short break, right? About 5 minutes maybe. And I'd like everybody, I don't know if they'll have time with just 5 minutes or more. Do you think they'll have time to record a video?
Yeah. Or maybe if you allow us, we can go a little later after 6, because we have a little more content to give you.
But for now, let's just take 5 minutes. Everybody go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, and come right back.
Yeah, because
Okay.
then they can send the video
after we finish. Yeah.
Yes, then we correct, okay?
Yes.
Michelle is here. We didn't see her.
I didn't see Michelle come in. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
All right. Okay, so take 5. We'll be back at 5:11. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
See you.
See you in a bit.
See you.
Hello, Edvar. What are you eating? What are you eating?
Yogurt.
Wish I had yogurt.
Aí não tem nada. Não? Peguei estilo.
Eat a banana.
Here we go again. Hello. Hello again. Everybody eating something.
Still eating.
Was eating a banana too. Hi, people. Are you here? Akemi, Michelle, Edna, Patrick, Daniel.
Yes, I am. I'm not going to open my video right now because I'm eating a cake. So please won't crave for my cake.
I'm here.
Okay. Turn on the microphone.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's get back into it.
Okay.
Can you, yeah. We study a lot of communication experts, right? We spend a lot of time kind of studying. And in our workshop today, there's certain people that we use so much stuff from them that we can't credit everything that we use. One of my favorites. Can you go to the next slide? One of my favorite communication experts is Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is famous for a book called Start With Why. And he basically came up with a system to explain why some companies like Apple have so much loyalty from their customers, while other companies like Microsoft are really just providing a service. Nobody gets Microsoft tattooed, you know, like nobody has the Microsoft logo tattooed, but a lot of people have Apple tattooed on their body.
Yeah.
A lot of people put a bumper sticker on their car. That's the symbol from Apple, you know. Nobody, if you're not working for Microsoft, you don't put a Microsoft sticker on your car, right? And he mentions in his book, Start With Why, that what Apple has done is created a tribe. They've created a lifestyle that's associated with their products. So it's a way, it's kind of a different way to look at marketing, actually. And he's a guy that he's done consulting with so many important companies. He's done consulting with the United States military, the US Navy SEALs, the Air Force, the US Congress, right? So he's kind of a big name in leadership training. He's got a really great video that's circulating now that's called Most Leaders Don't Even Know the Game They're In. That is a fantastic leadership video, about 35 minutes long. So he gives us some basic advice for speaking in public. He says to turn nervousness into excitement. I think this is interesting because apparently for your physical feeling, there's no difference between the physical feeling of nervous and the physical feeling of excitement. Like what's physically happening in your body is the same. So if you can convince yourself that you're excited about it instead of nervous about it, like you should be able to convince yourself that you're excited instead of nervous, and part of that is that interpersonal communication where I just self-talk, right? I'm really excited. I can't wait. I can't wait, right? Instead of saying, I can't do it. I can't do it. Say, I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah. Right. And he gives this really kind of clear piece of advice. Don't talk right away. And it's interesting, if you see a lot of TED Talks, you'll see some people make this error that they start talking before they're in position. And we just saw in my diatribe about hormones how important anticipation is. So you want to walk up to your position, and you may have a podium, or maybe you're just at the front of a room, So you walk up to the front of the room and pause, right? Get everybody to look at you. If you're in that little conference room and you've got 6 or 8 of your colleagues there, stand at the front of the room and pause. Then after everybody's looking at you and you've made eye contact with them, then you begin your speech, right? Or your presentation or story or what have you.
The other one that we would like to show you is Chris Anderson. He is the TED Talk CEO. He has a book that brings the strategies of TED Talk speakers. It is very interesting because he writes the book as if he was speaking with you. So you can understand it very clearly. And he also shows you examples. Watch this TED Talk. This TED Talk follows this rule. This person trained to say it this way. So it is very good, his book too. I have never watched a TED Talk of him. There are some, I looked at that TED Talk and I saw that, but I didn't watch. I just read his book. I'm reading his book in reality. And then he said that this sentence is very important to everybody who wants to make public presentations. Your goal is not to be Winston Churchill or Nelson Mandela. It should be you. You don't need to copy anybody. You need to follow your heart and to speak from the deep of your heart.
It's really interesting in his book how many of these famous TED Talks that we've seen that you think the person is completely comfortable, and like Monica Lewinsky's talk, she seems so self-possessed and comfortable. And in the book, we find out that she was not self-possessed and comfortable. She was almost having a nervous breakdown before she gave her speech.
Yeah.
But her talk just comes out so naturally, and she really, she has found her own voice, and kind of for a person that suffered everything she did, it's really remarkable to see the quality of her talk.
Yeah. Yes, her talk is very good. I watched it.
She actually breaks one of the rules that we tell people, that she reads sometimes.
Mhm.
And we normally say, don't do that, right? You shouldn't be reading, because while you're reading, your audience stops paying attention. Like the worst thing ever is my PowerPoint is up here and I start to read from my PowerPoint.
No, this is terrible.
Your audience will ignore you. They will just ignore you. Why do I need to be here listening to him if he's just reading what's on the slide, right? So, reading is an easy way to lose your audience quite quickly, right? But I have to say, she makes it work. And another example I always give of reading is that famous speech, "Stay hungry, stay foolish" from Steve Jobs. That's one of the most famous speeches in modern history, and he reads the entire speech. Yeah. He's like outside talking to 10,000 Columbia University students at their graduation. And his speech is written and he reads the whole thing, but it's still effective, right? So in general, we say don't read, but you have to be you, and sometimes it works. So like these rules are like, they exist, but you have to figure out what's going to work, which tools are going to work for you. I really, really recommend his book, because there's going to be an example in there that fits your speech style, or sales style, or what have you, right?
Yeah. Then we have Keisha Brewer. So Keisha Brewer talks a lot about public speaking, and she talks about the identifying your goal and focus and understand your audience. Always talking according to what your audience can understand you too. Communicate the value. Do you remember we talked about value before? What is important? What is the value of your presentation? And express the need of your client or your audience, especially.
I really like Keisha Brewer. She's got her own corporation, PR. I think it's called PR Solutions. And she's a University of Maryland graduate, a strategic communication specialist who has built partnerships between so many companies that like it's a partnership between Google and Tesla, for example. And she's the person that made that happen, And her TED Talk is really cool because she shows how you can use the same principles in your daily life as you would use in a professional situation. She gives two examples. One of them is her friend has a date that she got on Tinder. Tinder is an application for your cell phone that you really don't know the person, right? And she talks about how using this kind of system for communication works in that situation, where I've got to figure out if I can build a relationship with this new person, but it also works when you've got two multinational giants, trillion-dollar corporations that are going to work together in the same charitable organization, So her formula is incredibly effective and can be used in a lot of different situations. This is getting towards the idea of structure that we started to talk about before break. You always want to try to start. We talk about a hook. You want to try to start your speech event with something that's going to get people's attention. That can be a startling statistic. It can be a quote from a famous person. Although people say that's a cliche too, but it works. If you get a good, Johnny's a big admirer of Mahatma Gandhi. And if you know that you've got a Gandhi quote that aligns with what you want to get out of your presentation, everybody loves Gandhi. Everybody respects him. He's one of these guys everybody respects. So using a quote from Gandhi is a great way to get people's attention. A quote from, the Pope or the Dalai Lama, these are people who are going to get people's attention. Giving that shocking statistic. You know, in the hand washing video, the woman talks about how many children won't live to be 5 years old. And it's the equivalent of, is it 100 jets crashing every day, something like that?
Yeah, with 60 babies in each one.
Imagine if every day 100 jet planes with 60 babies in them crashed. It would be the biggest news that we would talk about all day, you know? And we ignore, you know, some basic things that we can do about it. Providing soap to people from underprivileged countries and getting people to wash their hands can save 600,000 children a year, you know? And it's like, wow, that's dramatic. That's a really
and it's interesting because she sponsors a kind of global hand washing day. I have never heard of this before watching her presentation.
But here in Brazil, Amor, the children's television channels like Nickelodeon, they participate in her her thing. Yeah. I'm sure Pedro has seen commercials on children's television that are just about washing your hands, you know.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, but it's because they focus on the children's networks, you know.
Yeah.
So it's commercials that the kids are likely to see that adults might not see it, right? Because they're really trying to convince children of the need to wash their hands, right? She said some people in some countries are washing their hands once a week. Right?
And another thing that makes this woman very, she makes our attention very closer to her, is that she shows a lot of emotion when she says. She says, I'm angry, and she shows she's angry about that.
But she also uses humor, right? Because a great part of her speech, at one of her parts of her speech, she says, I think we should all get to know each other better. Everybody shake the hands of the people on either side of you.
Yeah.
And after everyone shakes their hands, she said, 60% of you did not wash your hands when you left the bathroom.
We are making a lot of advertisement on her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send
we'll send a link to the talk.
Okay?
It's a great talk.
Yeah.
Great talk. And she's a passionate speaker talking about something that's super important to her. First person in the world with a doctorate in hand washing.
Yeah.
So as we saw Keisha tell us, establish the goal, right? Express the need. Here we have, see you later, Danielle. Thank you. Here we have relevance. If I can help the person who I'm talking to understand the need for what I'm saying, it's a better way to connect. It's a great way to connect. So how is what I'm telling you relevant to you? You know, and I can think of a situation that Largela, one of our students, went through at work, where she was trying to explain the importance of preventive maintenance on some of their equipment. And she showed that there was a 10-fold increase in money spent if they didn't do the preventive maintenance. So preventive maintenance, spending $1 million on preventive maintenance in the factory would save them $10 million in the case of a breakdown, you know? And talking about money like that to the general manager of a factory is a very good way to get their attention, right? That's relevant. $10 million, that's relevant, right? And as we said, don't surprise your audience. I mean, you can surprise them with your facts, but don't surprise them with your structure. They should understand where you're going during your speech. You know, you should try to use a easy to understand organization.
Okay.
Yeah. Next slide.
And when you close your presentation, I think closing it's a big challenge, because you need to show the person, the audience, you are finishing it. So usually I use a lot a summary to review the content. I think this is very important. Then it's important to reinforce the main idea, call people to action. We learned a lot about CTA when we started working on social media, but its call to action is to everything, especially here at school, at our training center. People watch a video per day, a day, only 1 minute, listen to a song. This is a call to action too, okay? To call the person attention that they need to do something. And at the end, return to the hook, okay? Get it again, because we want that you have in your mind what we taught, what we are explaining.
This is a thing from that Alan Alda made a short video about. He thinks the 3 is an ideal number for a division inside of a structure for a speech or a sales pitch, because it's a number that's small enough that we can understand it without counting. And we seem to have an instinct to group things into groups of 3. So 3 examples, 3 principles, 3 pillars of argument, as the Greeks have, right? The 3 pillars of argument. So he says it's an excellent way to focus. What we teach in the inane essay structure is you have an introduction, 3 examples that support it, 3 paragraphs that support it, and then the conclusion. So that rule of 3 is kind of an easy one to remember, but always try to break it up into a small number of pieces. And Andrea points out very, very astutely that it doesn't actually have to be 3 guys. It just has to be easy to understand.
Yeah. And we have a video on YouTube about the rule of 3 that Cliff recorded some time ago. And
Quite
then,
short.
yeah, very short. I believe it's less than 1 minute.
Yeah,
so
I don't think it's a minute.
I don't think it's just a minute. Yeah, this is very fast. Okay.
So when you're organizing your speech, as I said, we don't want to surprise anybody. We want the audience to understand the structure that we're using. And we're going to use signposting language to help the person follow what we're talking about. If I use a chronological arrangement, we are going to use first, next, and then finally. These words help the person to follow what my idea was, right? If I'm going to talk about importance, I don't want to mix up my things randomly. Either the most important one is first or last. I like the structure of putting the most important last because I think it's better for kind of shock value. If I'm going to give you three examples of my idea, I like to put the best example or the most shocking example, the most important example third, because it's a way to like bring the person back into your speech rather than, if I put my most important one first and then I follow up with less important ones, it's encouraging the person to not follow. A really, really great one for a lot of sales is problem solution. You have this problem and my product or service is your solution, right? And you can see, we don't want the person who's listening to us to have to guess. We should stick to a well-defined structure so that it's easier for the person to pay attention to. An example of spatial would be if we talk about the regions in the United States is divided up into 5 regions. Like we always talk about the same five regions. It's the Northeast, the South, the Southwest, the West, and the Midwest. So like whenever we talk about the United States regionally, we always hit those 5 regions. And any American is going to be really familiar if I'm talking to Americans about vaccines or something like that. there's a lot of regional similarities with the places in the United States that are highly vaccinated and the places that are not highly vaccinated. A lot of that is regional. The Midwest of the country right now in the United States is only 37% vaccinated, where the West Coast is over 90% vaccinated. So if I am talking about something that's easy for a person to relate to, like in the United States, are regions, but you also might think of a mechanical process, or you guys who are computer programmers, you might talk about the flow tree of what your program does. That's also an example of a spatial organization. Can I get this one? I love this topic.
Yeah. I know that.
We argue about who gets to say each part, guys. I think that this is an interesting statistic that we communications professionals have been using this breakdown for many years now, that your body language actually communicates better than the words that you choose. If a person is expressing themselves with closed body language, they're harder to understand. If you have an open posture, it makes you easier to understand. You know, when you use gestures effectively, it makes you easier to understand. As Johnny has pointed out, because now our world, unfortunately, is in these little squares, we lose a lot of the information because we can't really see each other's bodies, you know? So, you know, you're kind of in a situation where you have to learn to express yourself with what can be seen, you know? So you got to use your shoulders, you got to use your facial expressions, you know, in order to make an impact, because you don't have the privilege of necessarily being live in the front of a room. If you're live in the front of a room, it's wonderful, because we can use the Clinton Square, which is the area that we gesture within, right? Clinton Square is named after President Bill Clinton. He popularized the idea that if I'm talking one-on-one, and if you see videos of President Clinton or President Obama, they dominated this. If Obama or Clinton was talking to one leader, they would use these smaller, more intimate gestures. And if they're talking to 1,000 people, they would use larger, more expansive gestures based on the size of the audience, right? And both of them were really, really good at using body language, tone of voice, and importantly, their pauses in order to communicate well. Now, I do want to point out that something that Keisha Brewer says, this does not mean that your words are not important. Your words are extremely important. You know, this statistic doesn't mean we can just ignore the words. No, the words are extremely important.
I believe Chris Anderson says something about this, the book too.
Yeah.
He says it's important because you need to have a good story, but you need to have content on your story. It's not to be there and to say nothing.
Yeah. So like what you say, what you say is super important. How you say it is super important, right? We can't say that what I say is less important. It's actually more important.
Yeah.
But you have to understand what the idea of tone of voice, is kind of important. I think a funny example of this is if you hear a Russian guy speaking English, they normally sound angry. But it's because their intonation in their own language is different, right? So you have to understand, if I'm talking to a Russian in English, he's probably not angry. He's just using intonation that's more familiar with his language, right? Okay.
Public speaking as communication. This is communication all the time, people. Okay. And then there is a kind of theory. Cliff, you can explain the theory too, because you love it.
Yeah, this is from Richard Green. that he talks about the difference between public speaking and performance. He said, you know, if I'm a salesman and it seems to the person who I'm selling to that I am doing a speech that I have rehearsed, it will be very, very ineffective. As Akemi mentioned her punk rock background, when you're performing for a crowd, it is a performance, right? And there's a different level of energy and expectation that the audience has. But when I'm trying to make a sale, or if I'm in a job interview, it has to be a conversation. And this, Richard Green kind of codified this as level of effectiveness. People find performances very ineffective at communicating, but they find conversations very effective. So we have to try to make our presentations into a conversation. And that's another thing Chris Anderson says. You're not putting on a show, you're talking to the people in the audience, right? So we have to kind of remember it's most effective if it's conversational and honest, you know, from my heart.
Yeah. This is the most, the best presentations we watch is that one that looks like the speaker is talking to you. I think it's much better. Here we are.
So I mentioned in my introduction today about how Father Gracing was training with me on how to make a speech in front of a church.
Yeah.
And his big piece of advice was go slower, go slower. Actually, to communicate effectively, especially on a large scale, we need to speak unnaturally slowly. Like I feel a little uncomfortable with my speed.
Yeah.
That means that you're at the right speed for the audience. One of our students was talking about, I think it was Patricia was talking about an international conference that she was taking part on online. And there were two American girls from Southern California. Southern California does not have a difficult accent to understand, but the girls spoke so fast that even the other Americans could not understand them. So keeping a very measured rhythm is super, super important. And I like to imagine, now I can't remember the name of that Black actor who was always God in the movies.
I forgot his name too.
He's always God or like the president or a general or something, right?
Morgan
Freeman, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got that really wonderful slow pace, you know, very dramatic and clear. Barry White in the music world, you know. So we have to remember, keep the pace slow. This is a difficult one for women because communication is a little bit more effective when people speak in a low pitch. That doesn't mean quiet. Low pitch in Portuguese is grave, right? So when we speak in a lower pitch, like Morgan Freeman or Hillary Clinton, from the ladies' side in politics, Kamala Harris, who is now the vice president of the United States, you'll notice that they speak in a low register, not quietly, but they speak in a low register because it's easier for people to understand. Now, flow is really a measure of properly using your pauses. Pauses are super important in communicating. And sometimes we may think, oh, I just have 5 minutes. I'm going to speak as fast as I can. But if you apply pauses before your important points, those important points stick out better. And you'll see a lot of experienced speakers put their pauses in either right before an important point to build up anticipation, or right after an important point to let it sink in. So flow here is we're talking about rhythm. How can I pause, or where should I pause to bring people's focus to what I'm saying?
Then eye contact is very important, and we need, when we are speaking to an audience on the stage, it's important to look for friendly eyes, people who are agreeing with us, people who are following our thoughts. So it is very supportive when you find these kind of eyes, people that are really supporting us in the audience.
Yeah, there's an American actor who talked about making a speech that, I think it was an Oscar acceptance speech or something, and he couldn't stop looking at this other actor who seemed angry during his entire acceptance speech. And he said it made him really nervous because he was looking at some really famous actor and the guy seemed mad. And at the end of the speech, he said it was funny because the guy, the more famous actor, actually came up to talk to him at the end of the Oscars, and he was angry about something unrelated to the man's acceptance speech, right? So we have to, if you're seeing somebody with a bad reaction in the audience, you don't want to focus on that guy. You want to try to focus on people that you think, this guy's engaged, this guy's friendly, but you also have to make sure that you don't just give your speech to two people. You really do have to look at different people and make real eye contact. People can tell the difference between looking over someone's head and looking them in the eye. So it's very important that we really do make real eye contact with people, and we can't be afraid to see, to look into the crowd and I say crowd, but again, that could be 3 people sitting at a table, or it could just be one salesperson. But you have to engage their eyes. The eyes are the window of the soul.
Then here, it's Cliff's favorite picture.
I put this slide in here because the Village People have a song called Macho Man. And in the beginning of the song Macho Man, they say, body, body, can you feel your body? And this is here for kind of an important reason. Can we see the next slide? These 110 skills were identified by David J.P. Phillips. David J.P. Phillips is possibly the biggest public speaking expert right now. I mentioned his video, Death by PowerPoint, has millions and millions of views and shares. And they scientifically studied thousands and thousands of videos of speeches to show skills or mistakes that people make. Because you can see in some of in the red column, nervousness in the first line, those are not good things, right? So if a person is, I say doing the palm tree, right? The palm tree is a sign of nervousness, right? You're blowing like a palm tree in the wind. And the solution for it is kind of easy. If you put your feet directly underneath your shoulders, it's hard for you to sway because of your balance, right? So you put your feet a little wide and it helps you to remember not to sway. Now, clearly, we're not going to make you guys memorize 110 things. When you get the PowerPoint presentation later, you'll see this list, and you can look at it with more calm. And we recommend Googling David J.P. Phillips, because he's got a lot of great material on public speaking training, sales training, and these things. But there's a couple of these that are key skills. One I've mentioned already, open body language. When we have open body language, it's easier to communicate with people. We want to avoid building barriers between us and the audience. Most TED Talks, for example, do not use a podium. Some speakers do use a podium, but most TED Talks, the person doesn't have anything between them and the audience. You want to avoid keeping your hands closed. Keep your hands open. That's an ancient universal symbol. I'm your friend. And we recognize it subconsciously. When you want to engage your audience, you move towards them. When you want to use your hands to gesture naturally. And that's that thing where you have to find your own voice. Because if you don't gesture much and you fake it, people can tell. So you have to judge what gestures you're going to use, just like you judge what language to use. Slow down, as we've said before, and pause before important points. Then there's this little hint that David J.P. Phillips talks about that's called the Duquesne smile. And you guys may have heard of this. When we smile and lift the corners of our eyes at the same time, people see it as more authentic. And it actually, in your body, builds a hormone cycle in you that's a good hormone cycle. So we can, if you practice the Duquesne smile, you don't just make other people feel good, you actually feel better yourself. Guys, I think we're going to need a little bit of extra time because we only have 5 minutes left and we still have a little bit to get through. So if you wouldn't, try to be patient. We don't want to rush at the end. So we're going to need a few more minutes, a few extra minutes. Some of you guys I warned about this, but bear with us. We've just got a few more points to talk about. Okay.
So, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about presentation for clients, because we inside companies, we have our internal and external clients, and we need to talk to them. And there are people who are very stressed to talk to clients. I always work at talking to people all the time. And the people disappeared when I arrived with some international visitor at the company. And then I have some tips, very simple tips for you to talk to clients or with everyone that you need to talk to, even in the company, even your colleague. The first tip is to simplify the idea. You don't need to say, oh, you are an idiot, I'm going to explain like this. No, but makes the presentation in a way it is easy for your client to understand that. At the end, I'm going to talk to you about the hero journey that I believe Edna, I told Edna, but in Portuguese, now I have it in English. And then I think it is easier for us to understand our journey in life and in everything.
And I think you guys who are computer people have probably noticed that you can use technical words with each other that you can't use when you're talking to other people within your organizations, Yeah. So what is a easy piece of language for your professional colleagues may be completely indecipherable when you're talking to people from outside of your area. Kind of key is sometimes doctors communicate something with their client with their patients that the patients simply don't understand because the doctor uses a bunch of medical words that people don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked with explosives. So imagine I speaking about technical explosive words. People don't understand. So we need to explain what is the issue or the subject we are talking. And the second one is focus on what matters to them. For example, I have a friend, she has a kind of a pharmacy, she is a pharmacist, and she produces a lot of natural products. But she is very, very simple in her explanation about her products and what is the benefit. And then she sells a lot. But why? Because she focuses on what matters to the client. For example, oh, I have a headache, so you should use this one for your headache. So because it has this, and this essential oil that is important for this. So it is easy. If the person says like that, it is easier for us to understand. The other thing is make your point clearly, to be clear. So you need to explain it quickly to your client, because sometimes the client doesn't have time. This week it was funny. I talked to a client and he has I told, my God, he's not a Brazilian guy. His name is Petson. And he doesn't speak English, he speaks Spanish, and he's Brazilian. And then it is a very different name for me. And he didn't have enough time for me to explain everything. So I told him, I'm going to explain you our methodology, what we can do for you, and my proposal, because I didn't have time to talk to him. I needed to be very concise and explain it fast, in a fast way. Another thing, confirm if the person understands what you say. Sometimes we don't ask, if you ask, did you understand? They are going to say, oh, yes, I understood. But asking him, can you explain what you understood? Sometimes people don't understand the thing. The other one is be respectful. We need to respect the person we are talking to. If it's our client, our colleague, our partner, it is important to show, look, you didn't do it right, but you explain it to the person, but in a respectful way. The other one is avoid shaming their questions. Don't make the person to be ashamed of asking questions. Okay? And excite them. Make the person happy, enthusiastic about your project. So this can meet this need. So when I have the solution, you have the need, we have the meat. So there is business like this, okay? And then set a vision, a future vision. For example, you can speak English, you can make a public speaking presentation, you can show your presentation to your CEO, you are going to get your promotion. The person needs to visualize the future. That's how your client is going to buy your products or service. Okay. Then here we have something about audience and rapport. This one also is, for me, it is very important, especially us who now we work completely online. We need to show the interest. You need to, because there are people who think that rapport is to copy what the other is doing. For example, if the client does it, you do this. I cannot do this. It's terrible for
mirroring,
me.
right? Mirroring.
Yeah. So this is here we show a guy here, and he is showing the interest. He's showing the rapport to the show or to the theater he is watching. Would you like to say something more about this, Cliff?
I think that we need to remember who we're talking to. I think you explained it kind of well a moment ago. If we need to speak in a way that our audience is going to engage with. So even if I'm talking about the same issue, if I'm talking to a group of doctors, I'm going to have to speak in a certain way. If I'm talking to a group of philosophers, I'm going to have to speak in a different way. And if I'm talking to a group of bikers, I'm going to have to speak in a different way. So I think we have to know who the audience is, and we have to understand, we have to be flexible and change our delivery as we need to. I mean, imagine the difference between the same presentation for your boss versus the floor workers in a assembly factory, what you guys call peons, right? The most basic employee in the factory. You're not going to be able to use the same kind of language if you want to make a connection with them. So I think, you know, you explained that quite well.
And here we have Danpik, another expert in public communication, and he talks about pitch. There is a theory about pitch elevator. They say that you should say everything you need for introducing yourself, introducing your company in 1 minute. So this is very important, especially when you are in a big group where you need to speak very fast. And there is a formula for each two. Then he said a pitch isn't an attempt to convert a selling or something. It's an invitation to collaborate. Okay. A pitch is also these days, it's much used for human resources.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of times they use the expression elevator pitch.
Yeah. Because
we want you to be able to express your idea in the amount of time it would take on an elevator ride. So if you imagine, I coincidentally get into an elevator with Bill Gates, and I'm going to have, 6 floors in order to explain what I'm about. Because he can't get out of that elevator, right? So you'll often hear this referred to as an elevator pitch, being able to get to the heart of the idea in just a few seconds.
And here, there is the formula. If you are in a job interview, it's important to use that. Your name first, of course, and then share your values. What is valuable for you? What is unnegotiable in your life? You can, because there are some kinds of value. For me, for example, I hate lies. For me, for me, I need to trust you. So if I don't trust you, I don't have a relationship with you, even a friendship. So I need to be confident about your word. So this is negotiable for me. So each one of us has something that is negotiable, okay? The second one is paint a vision of the future. For example, you say, oh, I'm going to be here for 5 years. If you know the area, if you know what they do, I will make my support on this, and this. I'm sure I'm going to have results on this, and that. So it should paint to imagine in what you can help there, right? Would you like to tell the next one, Cliff?
This goes back to an idea that we had a couple slides ago. We need to show the person we're talking to what the future will look like with our solution. What my role is going to be in the company, if I'm in a job interview, how my product is going to solve a problem for my potential clients. for politicians what the policy change is going to do to people's lives. Okay.
Michelle puts here, elevator pitch is a formula to introduce projects, to sell the project. And it's only 1 minute, because I don't know if you know, because it's a kind of entrepreneurs meeting, BNI, it's a kind of international institution for entrepreneurs. And when you go to their meetings, you have 1 minute to tell all of this about your company, your name, the name is the company name, what you do, what is your public, and what's your challenge. You need to do all of this in 1 minute. So it is fast, but 1 minute you can do that because you go there prepared to do that, because you know you are going to have an elevator pitch. Another thing is listen. Listen, I think it's the most difficult skill, not only for listening to your audience, but the most of my students, they have problems in listening English. I had a boss, he didn't speak English very well, but his listening was perfect. And then once I told him, because he was not Brazilian, he was from Latin America. And I told him, oh, I would like only to have your listening and my speaking, because his speaking was not good. But his listening was perfect. It was really good. So, and here you need to pay attention to your audience behavior too, because sometimes the audience shows, oh, I didn't like it, I'm tired, I should leave. So it's the time to change our strategy of communication. The last one, Cliff.
And this is our call to action that we discussed on the other formula. We want the person to take an action. We want the person who's listening to us to do something, right? Hire us or buy our product or form a partnership, collaboration. So we should clearly explain to the person what it is that we want them to do next. Okay.
And then I'm going to talk, to ask you, do you have any questions of everything before? Questions? Would you like to comment something? Akemi, Edna, Patrick, Devar, Michelle. Would you like to add some ideas? No? No? Okay. So, Devar, turn on your microphone. No?
No, not yet.
Okay. So people, now I'm going to talk a little bit to you about the hero journey. This is a kind of bonus. I think Edna knows that, Michelle knows that, but I changed it a little bit, okay? It was inspired on Joseph Campbell book. This is the book, okay? The Hero of 1,000 Faces. Let me see if
Hero of 1,000 Faces.
Yeah. Then this book is very interesting, and it shows that everybody is a hero. And we all, every journey we start on our lives is related to a kind of journey like this. This is Joseph Campbell. I didn't know him. I looked for his picture for me to know him too. But I prepared based on his story. I put here a saga of our students, Seminole Hero Saga. This one you don't know, I think. You know Joseph Campbell, but not our saga. So people, and then I think if you want to read the book, it's interesting, but it's very philosophical. You need to like philosophy if you want to read that. Philosophy and psychology, because it uses the two areas. And here I'm going just to say it in some few words, in a nutshell. And then here we have the first one. Every journey that you start, you have a way to follow. So the first step you have, you usually are in the comfort zone. You are there, it's okay, this job is okay. It was what happened to Andrea. Cliff told he saw my advertisement, and so he came to study with us. So then he had a call to adventure. And in the beginning, people usually refuse the call. No, why to do English? To study English, to communicate, why? It's okay here. But suddenly you have a supernatural aid. It can be a mentor, can be a friend who says, oh, why don't you do that? Why don't you try studying English? Or don't you try to do a kind of communication course? This one, people, you can think about other areas of your life. I'm talking about English because this is my reality, okay? But you can think about a job interview or any other thing. So then you receive this aid, this help to continue your walking. Then you cross the first threshold. You start an English communication course, you change a habit. It's not easy to change a habit, to study, to change something that is not doing good things for you. It's not good for you. And when you cross the first threshold, you start to do something different. You meet people, enemies and allies. Are they your really enemies? No, there are people sometimes that they are only telling you, why are you going to change your job? You are okay there. Retire there. Oh, you are there for 10 years, for 8 years. I have never stayed at the same company for more than 5, 6 years because it was too much for me. But there were a lot of people, are you crazy? And then when you continue, you don't listen to them, you continue your walking and you approach the inmost cave. This place is the place where you are going to practice. For example, I need to do a presentation to my CEO, for example. And then this is the training. The moment you come here, we study with Cliff and we do some strategies. We think, oh, what we are going to do to achieve that? And then we work together on it. And then, of course, the time passes too fast, and you achieve the day. You need to face the lion. You go to the ordeal and you have a reward. Even if you don't pass, you don't enter the company, you didn't do a good presentation, you have a reward, you have a result. Because I always say there is not winners or failures. We have the result of the thing. And then after you face the challenge, you return to the common world, to the place you were before. But then you don't return the same person anymore. You have a magic flight. If you watch Lord of the Rings, I remember the eagles taking Frodo. It was fantastic. I love it, that scene. And then it's the magic flight. You are going back, but you are going back. But now you are not the same person anymore. You are the master of 2 words. And now you are free to live a new situation, a new story. So people, this is the journey I invite you. If it's in English, welcome to Seminole. If it's another place, welcome. Do what you need to do. Meet your objective, achieve your goals. Because if you look at it, you are going to see where you are in some areas of your life. I'm in a moment that I'm thinking a lot about my saga, my journey, and we always need to look in every area of our lives. I have 11 areas in a kind of life wheel. But we need to see in each area, where are we in this journey, because it is completely real. I think it's fantastic. Okay, Cliff. And then we have.
So I just wanted to very quickly remind everyone what we talked about today. We began with our personal introductions and personal stories. We learned what public speaking is, talked about the ranges of communication. We learned about the 3 pillars of argument from Greek philosophy, talked about Keisha Brewer's purpose, values, and goals, right? We learned a little bit about the hormone system, right? Spent a lot of time talking about telling stories and using sensory language. We looked at the rule of 3, right? Saw how communication breaks down 7% words, 33% intonation, and 55% body language. We learned the formula for making a pitch, and finally, Andrea taught us about the hero's journey.
Yeah, people, we are very grateful to have you here. This week, I'm finishing the ebook. We are going to organizing all this content with the authors, with some TED Talks videos. We are going to send it to you for you. If you want to continue studying about public speaking, you are going to have resources to do that, okay? We are doing each 2 months is a public speaking workshop, right, Cliff?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in January we are going to have another one. Who came in this one can come to the other one too, okay? There were some people who did the last one, but they had some problems. I was talking to them today, and that they couldn't come, but I believe next one they are coming again, because when you come to one, it's good for you to repeat. There is a sentence I heard from a consultant I hired in the beginning of the year, that he said, nothing wills the discipline to do the same thing every day. So sometimes we say, oh, but I'm repeating it again. People, this is the best way to improve your life, to improve your knowledge. So, of course, every workshop is going to be different, because I wrote here, oh, I need more research on this. So it's going to be different. This I promise. But of course, we have the structure down. But we are going to put more interaction. We are always planning, changing to help you to achieve your objective, your goals. This week, I'm going to send all the materials, and we talk a little bit too, right? Now, I would like to know if you like it, if you don't like, if you want to give us something interesting that
Feedback.
Yeah, feedback, yeah.
I would like to talk a little. I would like to thank you both for the time, for the effort on giving us these insights about the public speaking. I think, at least for me, it's going to be very useful. Mainly the technical tips you say, like speak slowly, slow down, slow your pitch when you're talking. And thank you very much. It was very fruitful. Hope to see you in the future. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Share.
Say thank you for Andrea and Cliff. It's wonderful. It's very important to me to participate for this workshop. Thank you very much. I love it.
Turn the microphone.
talking without the mic. I do that all the time.
Sorry. Thank you for this opportunity to participated this course, this training correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will follow this post in the social medias, and I will study the subjects from the classes to improve more my English. Thank you.
Edevar, Michelle.
I'd like to say thank you guys. Thank you, Cliff, Andrea, for this great presentation. I learned a lot. And as I said, it's very difficult to me to talk in public. It's gonna be very helpful to me. So thank you very much.
Share.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry for my late. And this day is good because we can learn more and practice English. I love the tips because I know it all and I use during my day, during my work. And I think it's a good opportunity to study in another time. Saturday is a good day. To me, it's a good day. Better than the week. During the week, it's terrible to stop it and listen and learn together. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, people, we are very grateful for your time, for your presence, and I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah, we'll when we I think, as Andrea said, January, we're going to do another one, and everybody is going to be invited. You know, everybody who's here today is going to be invited to take part again in January. It'll be a little different, but basically, you know, very kind of similar. So hopefully we'll see all you guys in the next version in January.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah.